you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Great. So I think I need to start my slides again. Right. Okay. So I'm going to look at 4 things. So my research matters because it's both personal and professional. It's interdisciplinary. It reimagines aging, turning aging into an opportunity and a positive experience. And finally, because it's impactful. So I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes just giving you a snapshot of some of those things. As Heidi introduced me, I'm Judith Phillips. I'm Professor of Gerontology at Stirling University, nearly said Swansea then. And I'm also the UKRI Research Director for the Healthy Aging Challenge. I'm a social and environmental gerontologist, so my main research areas are looking at the person-environment interaction. I have multiple roles and relationships in relation to research. Obviously, I'm a researcher myself over many years, but in my new role as UKRI Research Director and through the ESRC, I commission research, and I'm also a manager of research because I'm PVC at our university, so I have responsibility for research strategy in the university. And as you can glean from all of that, I don't work alone. I'm very much a team player. So when I'm talking about my research matters, it's the team research that matters. And many of you, of course, I've worked with, particularly Carol Maddock, will know that being part of a team is great fun. And so this is about why our research matters, not just my research that matters. But let me start by just talking a little bit personally, because I think it's really important for us to look at our own personal influences in our research. And the importance, of course, aging, we're all aging, so we've got a vested interest here in looking at this kind of research. And of course, it's interesting to look at what research is actually saying on how we should experience later life or prepare for later life. But how do our early life experiences shape our research agendas? I don't think we spend enough time really looking at that, looking at how we ask questions and where we're coming from. In my case, growing up in in South Wales valleys, in a terraced house, having a particular values, very cultural values, Welsh speaking, chapel going, really forming my identity and really shaping my environment. And those have all had influences on the kind of research questions that I've been asking and themes that I've been addressing in my career. If you're interested, there's a write-up in a book that came out last year, The Evolution of British Gerontology, which was published with the British Society of Gerontology and Policy Press, where it's looking at a whole range of us as gerontologists, looking at that interface between the personal and the professional. And just switching to professional then, so I have a background, I have a first degree in human geography. I then went on to work as a social worker with older people, and then came into academia to work as a gerontologist with older people. And all these areas, geography, social work, and gerontology, are inherently interdisciplinary. They all pinch from different disciplines like psychology, sociology, etc., and put them together. So working in an interdisciplinary way is really critical for me. And this again has shaped the kind of research areas that I've looked at. So care relationships, juggling work, family life, community, and family life. And I think we've been very privileged in the UK over many years to have research funding for interdisciplinary aspects of aging. As you will know, those of you who are engaged in aging research, you can't look at aging through one single lens or one discipline. It has to be interdisciplinary. And I've been very privileged, as I said earlier on, to be leading the Healthy Aging Challenge on behalf of UKRI. And that's a very interdisciplinary challenge. So what we're doing is working with businesses and academia to create products and services to help people as they age and to scale those up. And the reason that we're looking at this is we're trying to meet two missions, which are part of the Healthy Aging challenge, so that everyone will remain active, productive, independent, and connected across generations for as long as possible. And the second mission is to narrow the gap between the experiences of the richest and the poorest. And mission-orientated approach has to be interdisciplinary. And I'm very much committed to looking at these kind of missions and working through research and commissioning research to really address these particular challenges. Now, before I go on to the next slide, of course, we've heard a lot about challenges in the last year with the pandemic. And very much the agenda has been on vulnerability, on risk, on older people in care homes, etc. And I could have produced this at the start of my talk, which is really looking at the growth in aging populations across the world. Most people would say my research matters because we're an aging society, and talk about the dependency ratio and the demographics alone and the statistics. We've all had quite a lot of statistics in the last year or so. I think this is very good if you're making an argument for research on aging, but it's quite a negative perspective. Often it's referred to as the tsunami of aging and addressed in very negative terms. And what I've been trying to do through my whole career of 35 years in aging research is to really turn that into more of a positive experience. That's taken many years. So why my research also matters is that I like to think I'm reimagining aging as a much more positive experience. And here you can see some of the photographs that I've taken. I'm keen on taking photographs in relation to the research. Some of the photographs I've taken of my research as I've gone along, and I've really noticed that I've moved over the 35 years from looking at more of those negative aspects of aging to more positive aspects. Here, I was looking at care work. This is a care home. This was work done in the early 1980s. As you can see, older people slumped in chairs around the walls, artificial lighting, very much, you know, an us and them approach with somebody in sort of PPE gear as it was then, and very much not a homely environment. Again, another picture from the late 90s, an older gentleman slumped or trying to perch on one of those new bus stop seats. Again, not very comfortable, but really portraying a very negative picture of aging. This project, which actually I undertook when I was in Swansea, was looking at older people's use of space. And so it was looking at more of the negatives. And some of the other pictures, I think, are self-explanatory in terms of their negative image. More recently, and this is the team at Stirling University have been doing some fantastic work looking at care homes, designing interior environments for care homes. And these are much more positive, homely images that really are important to display when we're talking about aging. There's a big debate going on in BSG at the moment over whether we should use people's hands or not, older people's hands. So it's quite an interesting trail to follow there. So reimagining aging is really important. And then finally, my research matters because it's got impact. And I've just put up some of the more recent work that I've been doing. So we've been looking at reshaping town centres, particularly after the pandemic. And we have a paper out recently in Planning and Policy, which is looking at the revival of the high street. We're also at Stirling very much engaged in looking at how to design housing for people living with cognitive impairment. and a more recent project that's recently been commissioned, which Alison Dawson, who's on the call, is part of, and that's designing homes for healthy cognitive aging. So it's much more positive. And finally, and I'll come back to talk about this at the end, we've got money to support an intergenerational living innovation hub, which is part of a city region deal investment of £7 million. That's specifically for aging, although the actual investment is £44 million in Clackmannanshire. Now, to demonstrate impact, I just want to highlight one or two things. This is Iridis, which is an app that can be downloaded by older people themselves, people with dementia, architects, builders, which can lead to an assessment of your home environment to see whether it's suitable for later life living, and particularly living with dementia. And on the back of that, we've been working on some digital designs, and I'm hoping this is going to work, because I've got a video that I want to show you. Now, I'm showing this because this was funded by Cherish DE. I was one of the initial co-Is on the Cherish grant, and we've been able to work very closely, Stirling with Swansea on this. So very pleased to be demonstrating this. Now, this is a 2-minute video. There is a 5-minute video available. I think it's on the Cherish website. If not, it is going to be made available, I think, during your Festival of Ideas. Heidi can fill us in on that at the end. This actually demonstrates impact in a number of ways. I'm not going to talk over the video because there's actually some text on it. But what it's trying to do is to change the views of house builders to think about putting older people at the centre of their thoughts when designing and building housing, and to enable people to understand age-inclusive design. It's narrated by one of our architects. We have 2 fantastic architects, or 3 actually, but the 2 that were involved in this at the university. And they held workshops and interviews during the pandemic. They sent VR headsets to older people and worked with them to navigate through 2 prototype designs of some housing, and then they refined it, and we have a prototype which we'll be using in the Intergenerational Living Innovation Hub. So this introduces this. There is a point at which you might think the video goes wrong. It's been left in intentionally to show how difficult it is to actually conduct research during the pandemic when you're not actually in the same room as the participants. So I'm going to hopefully play this and leave you to watch for 2 minutes.
Hello and welcome to an introduction of demonstrating impact in housing, health and social care, a project funded by Cherish DE Escalator Fund.
Just walked into the door. Sorry.
great. So, oh, no, you don't want to see it again. So that just gives you a snapshot of the kind of work that we do at Stirling, and the 5-minute version actually goes into much more detail about the technicalities of how it was put together and the actual prototypes that we worked with. And so that will actually form part of what we're doing in the Intergenerational Living Innovation Hub, which we'll be designing prototypes with older people and then working with builders, construction industry to make that a reality in Clackmannanshire, particularly in the areas of deprivation. So hopefully it will have a huge impact. And what we're trying to do is to build age and eco-sustainable housing and bring businesses on board to scale up. And we have 2 very big international partners in realizing this, and obviously want to work very closely with the Owen Institute and the Active Building Centre in doing that, which we're currently doing at the moment. So I'm going to leave it there and say thank you very much and give you a flavour of Stirling. This is Stirling Castle here. This is our resident cow. And thank you very much. And I look forward to taking questions or comments. Thanks, Heidi.